Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Kalica and today we're going to be covering some Tales from Tech Support. Why I'm on paid leave over a $5 flash drive with nothing of value on it getting smashed. Some background information. I work for a corporation and/or institution where users handle enough information to be able to commit at least 2 to 3 felonies for every little query they touch, which isn't that hard to imagine. As such, they have a lot of policies that seem like extreme overkill, but on some level I agree with the attempt. The actual application of the rules I think borders on insanity, but the attempts aren't all complete failures. So some information you need to know. There's an internal USB connector inside the case. All the external USB ports have physical blocks superglued in. This is another story I've already posted. So Friday morning at 8 o'clock, I'm sitting around waiting for a ticket or something to do. I get a call in that a computer can't log in. There's no ticket because, well, they can't log in to start a ticket. Entirely understandable. The computer is network login, so there's 1,000 different things that it could be. Heck, it could just be unplugged and not turning on. Y'all know how users can be. I head up to their cubicle and start checking. Everything is plugged in. The computer turns on and there's no internet. I switch her network cord with her neighbour's to check the cord and everything upstream. Her neighbour's computer connects with her jack. I log into the local admin account and there's no internet connection or network connection at all. I check the device manager and there's the problem. The driver for the onboard network got corrupted, or something. I can't roll it back either. Great. This means I need authorization from cybersecurity to use a flash drive, and then I'll need to tear the computer apart to get to the USB port that's hidden inside the case that isn't superglued. Now the key for the case requires my supervisors to sign off on it and give me the key for the case lock. As well, I have to write up the ticket and put it into the system. I run down to the Batcave and download the driver for her computer and email it to my boss, with a note to stick it on a thumb drive, and then walk to his desk. Hey boss, just emailed you a network driver I need on a thumb drive. I also need you to submit my authorization form to CyberSec for the use of portable storage device. Yes, that really is 2 forms. So we sent the form off to cybersecurity to authorize. Request for USB storage device usage. Time estimated on the work, 15 minutes. Reason, copying network drivers to get the computer back on the network. Half an hour later and there's no response. The head of IT calls down to cybersecurity to get an ETA. 10 minutes later, the request comes back as denied. Reason, just email the file. So we got the biggest idiot ever reviewing the request. She has a tendency to just completely drop the ball. Before they took the job in cybersecurity, she had neither experience in cybersecurity nor any basic understanding of IT. But it's okay. She can haphazardly enforce rules she doesn't understand, and she spends her day helping idiots reset their passwords using the password reset tool. So my boss has to call her and explain the situation. After 5 minutes on the phone, he has to go upstairs to the boss of cybersecurity and explain why she's an idiot today. Half an hour later, the approval comes down from cybersecurity, comes into my email, and my boss texts me to grab the form from him, his spare keys and the USB drive. So now I have both authorization forms and I return to the woman's desk. She left a note for me that she's making a Starbucks run and will be back. So I power down her computer and turn it on its side so I can get it open to plug the USB in. I'm standing there fiddling with the flash drive and someone yanks it out of my hand, tosses it to the floor and starts stomping on it. What the hell are you doing? USB devices are banned, he replied. Whoa. First of all, I have an authorization form from cybersecurity. Second of all, that's company property. And third of all, you just destroyed evidence, I tell the idiot. So I call my boss and he's still in cybersecurity's office, or water cooler break room, as I explain what went down. Cybersecurity overhears the exchange. Cybersecurity decides to open a file of mishandling of suspect data, aka smashing evidence. Around about 11 o'clock, my boss comes back to the user's desk with a different flash drive and the drivers for the network adapter and another stack of new forms for him to do the work. I spent an hour with cybersecurity filling out paperwork about the destruction of a $5 flash drive, giving my statement on the data mishandling, and my statement responding to the accusation of using a USB storage device. So it took 3 hours and 15 minutes of 2 techs' time, including the head of IT, to reinstall a network driver. And now they have to pay a data recovery specialist God only knows how much to try and recover nothing of any value on a $5 flash drive to prove that there was nothing malicious on it. Oh, and I'm on paid leave because they don't know for certain what's on the flash drive. Cybersecurity told me that as long as data recovery finds what I said is on it or can't find anything, then I'm in the clear. If the drive hadn't been smashed, cybersecurity would have just looked at the USB drive and looked at what's on the drive. It should have taken like 8 seconds to do. Instead, I can collect a paycheck until the data recovery experts take a few cracks at the USB drive. But the good news is, I got to go home early on a Friday. Also, I get a long weekend. Maybe I'll binge watch Stargate. When a new IT department head steals the prestige email address from a long-time employee and lives to regret it. A number of years back, I was working for a company that had been around for many years. I was only relatively new myself, but there were still a couple of old guard senior engineers around who had been there from the start. The kind that shows where all the obscure, undocumented insider stuff is, and can fix most problems in 5 seconds that the rest of us might take hours to solve. One of the guys in particular, who I shall refer to as Joe, a bearded and jovial gent with a very Steve Wozniak persona, was always happy for us to approach him with our questions and welcomed us to leverage his vast knowledge of how the company's sprawling IT infrastructure worked to make our lives easier and cope with the constant unrealistic expectations of upper management. He was a real old school engineer, someone who loved their job and was well respected by everyone around the department. So when his friend, the current department head, a man of comparable knowledge and experience, retired and was replaced from the outside with a young and brash one with a business degree and little technical knowledge, who was also called Joe, it was a big change for everyone. Fortunately for us, he didn't interfere too much with the technical aspects of our day-to-day jobs, at least at first. When the company first started out, they weren't too concerned with formality when it came to email address policy. In later years, as the company had grown, they tightened the bolts with an official policy of issuing staff with a more formal address of firstname.lastname@department.countrycode.company.com. But those who were around from the early days retained their original name@company.com address as an alias. It was somewhat of a status symbol and a sign of authority in the company to have one of those, and those that did would use that version as their sending email address and proudly have it in their email signatures and on their business cards. The retired head had one such address, as did Joe in the form of joe@company.com. And you always knew when you saw an email come in the inbox from somebody with one of those addresses that they were someone important who had been around for a while. Most of the department's heads were long-term employees who used them, and it wasn't long before the new IT head noticed this aspect of our corporate culture and clearly envied his peers. But as a new employee, he was stuck with his formal email address, and they weren't issuing new legacy email addresses of this kind unless they were for someone way up the food chain. Even as head of IT, he had no authority to claim one, which is why when one day he spotted an email from Joe using his legacy address, he saw an opportunity to get what he was coveting. So as the tale goes, he called Joe into his office and had an exchange that went something like this. "Hey Joe, great work on the capacity report and getting it to me so quickly. We should be able to get approval from finance to expand our storage way sooner than I thought." "Not a problem. Is there anything else you needed from me for it?" "Nope, everything is there, thanks. But I happened to notice when you sent it through, you were using a different email address, a little different from the rest of the team." "Ah yes, that's the one I've always used from when I started and everyone here knows to reach me at. Also, some of our older systems and scripts we still use from the early days were hard-coded to use it as well, so I'm still actively using it to get critical alerts, and I've got rules set up to forward them onto the relevant team addresses we use these days, since the only alternative is to budget a major project to go through all of our legacy stuff to change it, and we were never able to get approval for that with everything else going on around here." "I've got no problem with that, but I was interested in getting one of those kind of addresses for me. It would make it easier for people to, know that I'm the head of this department rather than just another employee here. My predecessor had one, so it should be no problem for me to have one as well too, right? Can you make that happen?" "I'm sorry, I wish I could, but it's HR that makes that decision, and it's their policy to only issue personal addresses at the top corporate domain level, now for C-level recruits and their immediate assistants." "You've been here for a long time. Surely there isn't a way or someone you know who can make this happen?" "I'm sorry, it's a decision way above my pay grade. I'd be happy to put a request in for you for the head of HR to see if they could do it as a favour, but I'm pretty certain what their answer will be." "Okay, thanks. Do it and let's see what happens." Joe goes and logs the request, but of course the head of HR knocks it back, setting policy and not wanting to set a precedent even as a favour to Joe. Joe goes back to give the IT head the bad news. Hey, you know that request I put through to try and get you the top level email address? Unfortunately, HR have knocked it back. I did my best to try and push it through, but they were very firm on our current corporate policy of not issuing any new ones except for those at the very top. I'm sorry to hear that. Are you sure you did everything you could? Yes, it's out of either of our hands, unfortunately. Fine then. And Joe was right. There was no way the IT head was going to be issued with a brand new personal address. However, his position did allow how to authorise the reassignment of existing email addresses to staff, which was normally used to forward mail and alerts still being sent internally to staff who had left the company. He soon realised this was possible and formed a plan, calling Joe back into his office for another conversation. Hey Joe, you know how we can't get new personal email addresses created, but we can still reassign an existing one to my name, right? We can do that, yes. You have the authority to have the email address of anyone who has left redirected or reassigned to anyone else if you so wish. Did you want your predecessor's address? I mean, we can do it, but it would confuse a lot of people if they saw your email coming from someone who is gone. What about email addresses of existing staff? Joe's frowning harder and seeing where this is going. You do have the authority, but it would still confuse people and you would be getting all the legacy alerts and notifications, which would make you responsible for ensuring they flow through to the right people when they arrive. I think I can handle forwarding a couple of lousy emails whenever I see them. I have a greater need for visibility here, and there's no business requirement for you to have one, so start the process of transferring joe@company.com across to me immediately. Let me know once it's done so I can let everyone know. So poor Joe was forced to dig his own grave and give up the email address he had held since day one. He definitely wasn't happy about it, but he did as he was instructed. Falling back on his regular corporate address, he sent an email out to the immediate team and his contacts to let them know what was happening and to please use his full address moving forward to contact him. At the same time, the IT head proudly sent out a company-wide email broadcast letting everyone know that his email address had been updated and he could now be reached at joe@company.com as the head of IT. Weeks went by, and it was clear he was taking every opportunity to send out emails using his new address. New stationery was issued along with business cards, clearly showing his position and contact address. He was clearly reveling in having a coveted address and the prestige and recognition it instantly gave him, especially when dealing with other officers and people he didn't know he was only a relative newcomer. Life was good. That is until one fateful morning, when he wasn't in his office browsing Facebook like he usually would be doing when everyone else arrived. Turned out he had forgotten about his responsibility to forward through important notifications when they can through to him. He had set up a role to handle them, sure, but not to forward them as promised, but instead deleting them directly from his inbox without notice. One particular alert dealt with backup failures for a particularly important and long-term defense contract. One of our key SLAs was to ensure daily incremental and weekly full backups being performed on one of those old legacy systems that Joe had mentioned to him, both verbally and in writing. The media in an old backup unit had failed and was repeatedly notifying the issue. It was normally a simple fix, replace the faulty media in the backup unit and restart a full backup run, but with no alerts being sent through, nobody knew there was a problem. So when a request came through from the client to perform the restore of previous week's data after an accidental deletion, the backup team found, to their horror, that no backups had been running for the past several weeks and the data had been lost. The client was not amused. The CEO with whom they had a close relationship was even less so. The IT head attempted to throw Joe under the bus when word came down that the company was going to incur a massive rebate for the SLA breach. But Joe, in his wisdom, had ensured he had done a complete cover your ass when handing over his email address, including email exchanges with the IT head highlighting the importance of the alerts and to ensure they went to the right people, including detailed instructions on how to set up forwarding rules and where to send them. All completely ignored. HR policy was specific when it came to important email. It was the clear responsibility of the recipient to ensure they were handled accordingly, and the IT head had clearly failed in his accepted responsibilities. He didn't last probation, and was gone within the next month. Everyone was wondering who we would be getting in the position next. HR and management were tight-lipped on the topic, and there was plenty of speculation within the department about what might happen next. But everyone was smiling when they walked in on Monday to see Joe sitting in the IT head office. In the wake of what happened, management decided in their wisdom that the IT department should have a head who actually knew something about IT, and tapped Joe to take the seat. He hung on for a few more years before retiring or moving on, but during his tenure he was one of the best IT managers I have ever worked for, and the position didn't change him from being the friendly, helpful and supportive teacher that he was. I was sad to see him go, but while he was still with us I always smiled when I saw his emails coming through from us, from the old, friendly address of joe@company.com, which he had reclaimed and had been returned to its rightful owner. Okay, so that's all for r/TalesFromTechSupport. I really hope you did enjoy it. As always, if you do want to see more content like this, then please do subscribe. Any support is greatly appreciated. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!